welcome to my holiday book bag for 2020, edition number 10. First book I'm going to review is this book about Paul McCartney. Unfortunately I don't have the book to show you. I lent it to a fellow holidaymaker the other day, so I don't have it to actually present here. Very interesting book indeed. Starts off by detailing Paul's early life. How he met George Harrison on the school bus. He later went to the Woolton Village Fete, met John Lennon, was invited to join John's band, which was then the Quarrymen, and how the three of them, John, Paul and George, became the nucleus of the Beatles. Throughout the school days and early and late teens, they worked together to create a band with various different band members coming and going. But eventually got a gig in Hamburg, and they didn't have a drummer, so they enrolled a guy called Pete Best to come with them and play drums in Hamburg. Now, prior to going to Hamburg, they didn't have a good reputation. They weren't well known as a good band, but playing together 6 hours a day, I think it was for 6 days a week for a number of months, they became a very tight-knit band. When they came back to Liverpool and played in the Cavern, they were spotted by Brian Epstein. He became their manager, and of course they went on to Beatlemania and worldwide fame, all except of course for Pete Best, who unfortunately got the bullet just prior to their fame, and Ringo Starr steps in. Now, I've read in other books that Paul was the architect of that. This book tries to blame it on George Harrison, which is a bit strange to me because he was the junior member of the band. But for whatever reason, Pete got the bullet and George went on to worldwide fame with the Beatles. The book details how they get to this spot where they get the recording contract and work with George Martin to make the records, and it's very detailed up to the point, and then it goes into a kind of a wider focus where it's very generalized. So they talk about the late 60s and the albums that they made in a very general way, and the split up of the Beatles. Obviously Paul buys his farm in Scotland, gets married to Linda, forms Wings, even though Wings were really just Paul's backing band. I think he did a number of solo albums and albums with Wings, and went on to greater success to this present day. A very interesting read, very fascinating. I love reading about the Beatles, but not quite the book I thought it was going to be. I don't know whether Paul McCartney is ever going to write an autobiography, but I think that's the way we're going to find out about the real Paul McCartney. Anyway, very good read indeed. Moving on to another book. This was another biography that I read. This was about David Niven, the authorised biography by Graham Lord. Super read, very enjoyable, very light, and a very easy holiday read. The sort of thing you can just get on your sun lounger and flip through. Super book, follows pretty much what David himself has said in The Moons of Bloom, but according to this author, he reckons David was a bit of a fibber, and he sort of embroidered his stories and tries to put the record straight in this book. The big fault with it, I think, is that in The Moons of Bloom, David talks about Nessie, a very pivotal character in his life. He lost his virginity to her. He was pretty much in love with her, I would say. But according to this book, the author reckons she was a completely fictional person, or built on various women that he knew encapsulated into one character. Personally, I don't believe that. I think she was a real person, and I don't believe that at all. But otherwise, a great read. Niven's character is a very friendly guy, just comes over, and through his stories and through the things that happen to him, very enjoyable read. Moving on to the next book, it's this one. It's Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Very famous book indeed. I've read this years ago, but the edition I read was pretty much, I think, was for a student. It was full of notes and bits and pieces, and this one is just a Penguin Popular Classic Edition. It's just a straight read without any notes, and I got into it almost straight away. I've had difficulty with some of Dickens' other books, but this one was a complete joy to read, even though I knew the story. I've seen the film of it a zillion times. But I love Dickens' very rich language and descriptive text. A super book. I enjoy that very much indeed. One final book was this one. Greene, Our Man in Havanna. And I think I heard about this on one of those websites where it says, 100 books you should read before you die. This particular book is not quite what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be a bit of a John le Carre 1950s style, man who came in from the cold sort of thing, but it's not like that at all. It's a very light, a very humorous book. It's about a guy who's a vacuum cleaner salesman in Havanna, and he's recruited by MI6, and then he recruits his own agents. He hasn't got a clue what he's doing, but he's very short of money at the time, and his daughter is growing up and wants a horse and stabling and all the rest of it. So he invents some fake agents and obviously pockets the money for those agents and their expenses, and builds himself a nice little life until one of them gets bumped off. So very humorous book, very well written, very enjoyable, and if you ever see that in a bookshop, well worth getting. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Steve Higgins, and find out more at stevehigginslive.com.